So today we're talking about our solutions for small scale organic growers. And thus far, in the last several weeks, I've been kind of painting a bit of a, I don't know, bleak's the right word, but a difficult picture for small scale organic growers in North America in general, really. Are all experiencing these kind of issues where it's difficult to be able to make a living. I don't think it's any secret. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifices involved, a lot of small trade-offs along the way. And so far, I've been kind of talking about these things in a lot of generalities. Specifically, I wanted to hone in on one particular case, and the best case I got for you is my own. And I don't want to seem as if I'm kind of bitching and moaning about the whole, about different successes and failures in organic farming. I just kind of want to present it the way it is. I want to kind of give you a little bit of background about my previous operation, Grassroot Organics. And then I also want to kind of paint you a picture of what that kind of looked like to operate day to day throughout our different throughout our progression there as the business grew. So a little bit of background first on the Grassroot Organics business. That was a small farm there that was operated by myself and my wife, Laura Boyd. We started that in 2001 and then ended it in 2018 when I moved out here to New Brunswick, and then my family moved shortly after me. Grassroot Organics operated on a 100-acre farm, which was a fairly common thing in Ontario in that part. It's a very kind of squarish kind of looking 100 acres is what how the land was parceled in that part of Ontario. Very flat over there in that part of Ontario, so it was very possible to carve out these nice 100-acre pieces of property for different farms back in the day. Laura's grandfather was the one that purchased this farm for her father and her uncle. Laura's grandfather owned a farm in Markham, Ontario. Markham was being developed there in the late 70s, or all throughout the 1900s, but in the late 70s, Laura's grandfather sold his farm to basically be paved over to for a highway. Which is a shame because it's prime farm and land in Markham, Ontario, and all of it's being paved over and made into subdivisions. And then he bought the farm out in a small town called Woodville in the Kawartha Lakes in the early 1980s. And he bought that farm for my wife's dad and her uncle. Now, Laura's uncle passed away during the 1980s, in the late 1980s. And it was Laura's dad that was managing the farm by himself. He did various things over the years at the farm, including growing market garden kind of produce on a larger scale, conventional scale. And he also had most success doing pick your own operation, strawberries and raspberries, again, conventionally. And for various reasons and influences and factors, Laura's dad stopped farming in the 1990s and then took an off-farm job. And the farm was mostly managed for hay production at that time by a neighbor. And then Laura and I started Grassroot Organics in 2001, just on a small half-acre, odd kind of parcel of land that wasn't doing much else on the farm at the moment. So Laura's dad tilled that for us in the fall of 2000, and then we started there in the spring of 2001. And we were growing in much the same manner as what we're growing here at Hayes Farm, with lots of mulch, permanent raised beds. Although at that time I didn't have nearly as much knowledge or confidence going into it, but that was the same themes anyway, as a lot of small, like human scale is the language we were using, heavy mulch gardening. The language is more around organic farming at that time than regenerative farming, but essentially that's what we were doing at that time too, was regenerative farming without maybe perhaps as much knowledge and theory as I have now. So in 2001, Laura and I were both working off-farm jobs full-time in the food service industry. I worked in the back of the house in the kitchens, and she worked in the front of the house doing serving. And we operated like that for the first 3 years of our farm existence there. We were both working full-time at the farm and full-time off the farm. We were trying to sell our goods as local as possible. In the early years, I was dealing with several small local restaurants. We were doing a small CSA where we were delivering, and we were really working too hard for the sales that we were having there locally, especially. Anytime you're out delivering individual CSA boxes, it's a tough go. But we were trying to make it work. We were trying to build our name, build our reputation there, and that's how we operated for like the first 3 years. By year 4, I was able to quit my off-farm job, and I started a business called Kawartha Ecological Growers, which was a bit of a co-op kind of in theory, but on paper it was a sole proprietorship, where I was buying in and reselling from various local organic farms in the area and taking it down to Toronto. And essentially Grassroot Organics was supplying Kawartha Ecological Growers, which was doing most of the sales down in Toronto. Kawartha Ecological Growers started out with restaurant sales. This is around like 2005 now. We started out with mostly restaurant sales, and then we got into farmers markets, and then we started managing the CSA program all in Toronto. And went pretty well. Between 2005, when we started Kawartha Ecological Growers, to 2011, when I sold Kawartha Ecological Growers to my coworkers, and we'll talk about that in a second. We found ourselves delivering to maybe about like up to about 15, give or take, restaurants a week. We were participating in 5 farmers markets. We grew our CSA program up to 300 shares in Toronto, which is quite a bit to manage. I had a whole crew on payroll, and I was running a fairly legitimate business. It kind of still amazes me. We were grossing annual sales of over $250,000 yearly. Our numbers were quite good. That's gross, not net. Our net was considerably smaller for sure, especially in early startup business years. Your net's quite modest, even if your gross is $250,000, your net's quite modest. And even still, like today, I think those numbers are quite good. I'm pretty impressed by those numbers. And so in the meantime, that's like Kawartha Ecological Growers doing this marketing and distribution business. In the meantime, Grassroot Organics was growing. We grew from a half acre to about 2 acres, and it was still at that time mostly human scale labor. Little mechanization was going on at Grassroot Organics. But in the management of Kawartha Ecological Growers, I found I was spending much less time on farm than I wanted to. And more of my time was spent on the road and going to markets and doing logistics and sitting behind a computer, doing phone calls and emails and all this kind of stuff. Where I got into farming because I wanted to farm. And then suddenly I wasn't farming anymore. I was managing the business and doing all these sales. And that was all right though for the time being. I was happy with that for the first little while. But then as Laura and I started having a family and a few kids came along, I wanted to be at home more than on the road more. And I wanted to be back in farming, and it was kind of started eating me up a bit. So I found myself running a successful distribution business when I really just wanted to be a farmer. I just really wanted to be on the farm. So in 2011, I sold that Kawartha Ecological Grower business to 2 people that were on my payroll, basically my coworkers, my 2 most keen employees. Then I took that money that I made from selling the Kawartha Ecological Grower business and reinvested it into Grassroot Organics. And then at that time, we kind of blew up a bit. We went from that 2-acre parcel to managing a 10-acre field. We got into some tractor equipment. We had 2 tractors running, various implements behind the tractors, and then kind of switched some gears and reconfigured our marketing approach and who we were selling to. We were still selling to that Kawartha Ecological Grower business managed by my former employees there that took over the business, except they went bankrupt with it in 2 years. But we were selling to them still in the first couple of years there. So what I wanted to get at next then is from about 2011 to 2017, during those years when I was managing Grassroot Organics, I kind of wanted to share my schedule with you. And this is very typical schedule, and I'll get into why it's so typical in a second, but let's talk about that schedule first. So on Mondays, I would try to take Mondays off. However, my crew would still be working. We had a small crew, which was only like 1 full-time employee, plus Laura, plus a part-time employee, and some volunteers occasionally. sometimes a woofer that would live on farm. If you guys are familiar with the woofing program, I think we've talked about that before. The problem, and a lot of farmers will experience this, is that my business was also my place of residence. And even though I'm trying to have a day off, I still have a crew there. Their lunchroom is my kitchen. The bathroom for the crew is my bathroom. So anytime they're inside the house, they always kind of come in and check in, and I try to make myself available, but at the same time, I'm trying to have a day off. So that Monday day off was, a half day off perhaps. If I really wanted to have a day off, I'd have to leave the farm. But then I couldn't take care of all those things that you try to take care of at home on your day off, your laundry, your cleaning, all this kind of stuff, trying to get ahead for the week. So it was really kind of truly hard to get ahead, to take a day off there on Mondays, but that's how I tried to manage it for the first little while. We are also doing a CSA on Mondays in a nearby small town about half-hour away called Lindsay, Ontario. Laura was managing that CSA, and that was our local CSA effort there. Yeah. Tuesday and Wednesday were typically farm work days for me. Even if it was raining, you just do different jobs. Those are always good greenhouse or barn kind of cleanup days. We had some livestock, so those are good days to look after your livestock if it's raining. And then Thursday, were typically at the early part of the season, there were kind of more half farm work days and then half market prep days. And then as the harvest got bigger as the season went on, Thursdays became all market prep days. Friday is completely market prep day from the time you wake up, the time you go to bed is all about packing that truck for market. So we would load up we had a big white truck I was running at that time, similar to the truck I have now, but it was actually an insulated truck with a refrigeration unit in it and a working back door. That was nice. And so we would load up the truck on Friday evenings and plug in our reefer unit. And then Saturday was my big day in the city. Laura would stay home with the kids. I would go into the city, and I would be up and out by 4:30 in the morning, ideally. Market started, I would try to get at market before 6 a.m. I would have a crew that would meet me there, and then I would handle the bigger orders from the customers, because all the serious keeners that really want to buy from farmers show up before the farmer market even starts at 8 o'clock. And so I would have all their orders there ready to go, sell stuff already. And then by 8 o'clock, market would start. I would hang out for the first half hour, 45 minutes, up to an hour, make sure everything was going smooth. Then I would take off and do restaurant deliveries. During that time too, especially in the later years, I would set up a second market elsewhere in town, which was basically a DIY market. Basically worked almost on the honor system. I was working with a restaurant called The Drake in Toronto. And they allowed me to set up a market there where people could just come and take whatever they wanted. And they would pay the restaurant, and then I would come in and settle up the restaurant at the end of the day. And that worked out pretty well. So after I left the first market, I would be going and setting up a second market. Then I'd be going around town and doing my restaurant deliveries. Then I got to go back to my first market at 2 o'clock for pack up. Then I would keep doing more restaurant deliveries, and then pack up my second market at around like 4 or 5 in the evening. And then head home, get home, sometimes 6 or 7 at night, try to get some sleep, and then be up and out for 6 o'clock the next morning in order to do Sunday market. Sunday market was set up, was ready to go by 10 o'clock, and again, I'd set up my crew, and then do my market stuff, or do my restaurant deliveries as market was going on, and then I'd be back home by like 5 or 6 in the evening. And that's basically my week throughout the late spring and all throughout the summer and into the early fall. Pretty busy schedule. Then into the late fall and into the winter and the very early spring, I was teaching at Sir Sandford Fleming College in the Sustainable Agriculture Department. The reason I'm sharing that right now with you is because for that gig, I would invite in all sorts of different organic farmers from the area. And we would talk about a great many different things. And one of the things that we would talk about is our schedules. And my Monday to Sunday kind of always on kind of schedule was very similar to how all of these other organic farmers were working. Most people took maybe a day off, maybe a half day off a week during the growing season, and they just kind of kept it working and kept going at it. Anytime any friends or family visits, everybody's well aware of your schedule and everybody kind of comes in stride. I had so many visits with my brother over the course of grassroots organics where he knew he was coming to work if he was going to hang out with me, and he would just try to keep pace. And he knew, for better or worse, that's the way it was going to be if he's going to come and visit. And that's the way it is. And a lot of organic farms work in that way. So from having these guest speakers in at my teaching job at the college there, teaching sustainable ag, I found it was kind of very clear that my schedule wasn't too different from all of the other schedules of all of my other farming colleagues. That being said, perhaps my Amish friends had it figured out a little bit better. They lived definitely differently, a different lifestyle altogether, a very intentional kind of lifestyle. That perhaps my kids wouldn't understand if I chose to put that on them. I'm not sure if my community would allow me to do so, but the Amish seem to have a kind of better work-life balance figured out than most of my farming colleagues in that area anyway. So my point here, my takeaway, is it's very possible to make a living in small-scale organic farming, but it is a bit of a grind and many sacrifices need to be made. And I'll be honest, I was lucky. I never got hurt. I never really got sick. Being an entrepreneurial sole proprietor or partnership type business, there are no benefits, there are no paid sick days, you don't get anything like that. I didn't have health insurance and this and that. A lot of farmers don't. And if you get sick, it's on you to figure out what you're going to do with your farm and this and that. And so I got lucky there. I got lucky that I never got sick. I never got hurt. And that is something that could put an end to a small-scale organic farm, especially in the early days, really quickly. If you're out for a season, that could be the end of your farm. And so, as I was saying, in order to make a living in small-scale organic farming, there's a lot of small little sacrifices along the way that need to be made. And in my mind, and in most people's mind that does this kind of business, they're all kind of for the greater good, but they do accumulate. And it becomes more evident of these sacrifices, at least in my situation for my wife and I, by having kids and watching our kids grow up. Even though we were living in a very rural area in Ontario, in the Kawartha Lakes, in a small town called Woodville, where the cattle probably outnumbers the people, which I like, that's a good thing. Even though we were living very rurally, there wasn't a lot of people working agriculture in that area. The trend is for farms to get bigger and small family farms to get bought up by other bigger farms. And there's a lot of people that were working city jobs and driving from the Kawartha Lakes into the city in order to make their living. Then there wasn't agriculture. So your kids are growing up, they're going to school, and they're seeing these slight little differences between how you live and how everybody else lives. And kids being kids, the grass is always greener and this and that. And you find there's a lot of little sacrifices that are made in order to kind of keep up. You know, my kids certainly aren't the ones out there with the first high-tech devices, that's for sure, and that's kind of part for where I'm kind of coming from, but it's also financially as well. We, especially during the summer, you know, vacations aren't a thing where kids see their other friends kind of going away on vacation. Laura and I, basically, as we're operating grassroots organics and most small-scale organic farmers, kind of have to watch almost every penny coming in and going out, because there's a lot of reinvestments in the farm. And so it's hard to be able to free up money to do things like little vacations or those little frivolous high-tech devices and all those kind of stuff. Yeah, it's very difficult. And now on the other side, of course, we ate extremely well. We had all sorts of super cool land-based experiences with our kids. But again, you know, your kids see their peers going out and doing other things, I don't know, whatever they happen to be, from going out and having four-wheelers, and that's something that I find depressing in the country, is there's more kids on four-wheelers nowadays than on bicycles. You know, the kids just always want those kind of shiny, seductive things that are out there. And it's even a reason that Amish folk leave the Amish community. And when my time spent with the Amish, I have known a couple of their kids that have left the Amish community because they want those big shiny things. They want the big truck, unfortunately. It's very seductive, this Western kind of culture, kind of lifestyle. And even though we're having like these super cool experiences down in the woods, you know, foraging fiddleheads and wild leeks, the kids are still thinking, you know, that their friends are luckier because they get to go to McDonald's. And it just, you know, it's tough. It's that cultural kind of influence. So essentially, Laura and I found ourselves that we were living an alternative lifestyle, and many organic farmers do. But at the same time, you're still trying to keep up with your non-farming peers and your non-farming society around you. And you're trying to kind of live normally within that society. And sometimes you get some funny looks from the kind of things that you do. At least I do anyway. And then, so that's just kind of like addressing it a little bit financially, let alone the time crunch, the time demands. During the summer, it's next to impossible to leave the farm. And like I was saying, when people visit, they kind of come in stride. Some of my times with my kids, like when they get off the bus, I used to make them kind of come out and see me and hang out for 20 minutes. I would love to be able to take that time off to be able to go to the bus and greet them and do things, but no, I had to make them come out to the field and this and that. Mind you, I think it's a good experience. I still think it's a good experience. But my kids bug me about that from time to time, but as kids would, and I think they're going to come around to it. And then operating the organic farm and trying to make a profit out of the organic farm, and we were talking about some of these things in previous weeks too. Some of the practices that were considered good agricultural practices and endorsed in government meetings and endorsed by the profitable organic farms out there. And some of those practices were starting to haunt me over time. The use of plastic and plastic culture we were talking about. I used to use the black agricultural plastic out in the field, lay the plastic drip tape underneath the black agricultural plastic, and then cover that with low tunnels, which is also made out of plastic. There's basically 3 layers of plastic out in the field. And over time, this kind of stuff begins to haunt, at least me, maybe not everybody out there, but these are the things that you do to remain profitable. Those are the little sacrifices and tweaks along the way. In this case, it's the sacrifice to my ethics. And let alone when we took that step and we blew up our farm from 2 acres to 10 acres and got those 2 tractors and started using all the fossil fuels. Those are some of the ethics that I wanted to not participate in when I began grassroots organics early on with our permanent raised beds and mulching and that kind of stuff on that human scale level that I try to operate at. But I didn't find it profitable, so then I moved up to this tractor scale. And these are just the compromises that, you know, start to eat away at you, at least start to eat away at me. And let alone trying to pay employees and make your payroll. That's stressful. Holy smokes, is it stressful. At times, like I said, I had a full-timer on farm, plus a part-timer on farm, sometimes up to 2 part-timers on farm, especially during harvest season. Then I had a market crew down in Toronto that would help me out regularly, and that was 2 people down in Toronto. And then I'm missing somebody or another. I had a delivery driver hired at one point too, especially in fourth ecological grower days. So at times I had people on my payroll, anywhere from 4 people or up to close to 10 people on payroll, especially managing fourth ecological growers. And it's stressful to be able to make payroll. And it's even more stressful knowing that I'm not paying these people a living wage. And that's where my ethics and heart is too. I want to be able to pay all these people a living wage, but as a farmer, I'm not even making a living wage. And how do you pay your employees $17 an hour when I'm not even making $17 an hour? And these are the things that kind of eat away at you. So, you know, as you are, say, you know, a lone small scale, sole proprietor, entrepreneurial, small scale organic farmer out on his or her fields, and if you're not networking with your peers, you start to wonder, you know, is it just me? Am I managing my farm in the wrong way? Like, is everybody seeming to have to struggle like this as I am? But then as you start to network with the other people and other organic farmers, and then you really take the time to figure out and understand each other's situations, then you kind of start to get a different picture being painted, and you start to get a different idea that maybe, you know, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not the way I'm managing my farm. Maybe it's bigger than just me. Maybe no matter how hard I work, it's still going to be a struggle. Maybe the problem is systematic. Maybe there's a bigger problem out there. And that's kind of the conclusion I kind of came to over time. Maybe it's not the same conclusion a lot of people come to, and I don't mean to sound as if I'm bitching and moaning here, but I think there's a bigger systemic problem than just a farmer not working hard enough to be able to make his or her living. It seems to me it doesn't matter how many hours you put in on a small to medium-sized, small-scale sustainable farm. It just doesn't pay off to manage a small-scale farm sustainably and equitably in terms of like wages for your employees and this and that in our present economic environment. Bottom line, that's the conclusion I've come to at this time in my life. Doesn't matter how hard you work, just our present economic environment doesn't support small to medium-sized scale organic farms. And so when I came to this conclusion, I then had some decisions to make. I could keep going at grassroots organics the way it was, or I could switch some gears and try something new and bold. And at that time, one of my students at Sir Sandford Fleming College pointed out this Hayes Farm project to me. And here I am. I believe in it strong enough that I made the move with my whole damn family. I'm pretty proud about it, and I'm pretty happy about it. I really do see this project as a potential solution for small-scale organic growers, and that's exactly our topic here today. So exactly 1 week ago, last Monday, we spent some time talking about managing a prosperous community farm, and we asked a whole lot of different questions. We asked, can you have a prosperous farm and respect the environment at the same time? We kind of examined and had a conversation about what is prosperity or wealth anyways, and is a profitable human scale farm realistic? We talked about the politics of a profitable farm and organic ethics versus organic business and plastic culture and the overuse of plastics. We talked about all those kind of things last week. So I'm not going to get into too much of that this week, but we kind of set the ground for this week's talk with a lot of last week's questions. We also outlined how Hayes Farm works financially. I showed you our various income streams from outside funding and tuition and our produce that we produce, and our various overheads being our salaries and farm expenses and site expenses. We talked about how that kind of balances through a lot of hard work by Edee. I'll give Edee a nod over there with some her grant writing skills and networking that she has established. And then we also kind of talked about the concept of a community farm being an essential service to the community that it serves. And we talked about community farms and urban farms being able to monetize more than just the crops it provides. Being able to take advantage of the green space that it provides the community. Being able to take advantage of the skill development that that community farm or urban farm is able to supply for that community, let alone a community gathering space in order to build and galvanize a community. Something as simple as having a public pizza oven on a farm goes a long way towards that. Perhaps pre-COVID, in a different environment right now we see. The community farm approach, in my opinion, is one of the solutions for a small-scale organic grower. However, not every farmer wants to give up his or her farm, especially if they've been on that farm for generations. They're not willing to go and work for another kind of farm or even a community farm. And perhaps their farm is not in a great location to be able to make it a community farm, or perhaps they're not even of that mind. And I've never really been a favor of one-size-fits-all solutions anyway. Just like on a farm or in an ecosystem, you need a diversity of options for optimal growth. In my opinion, there needs to be other options too for small-scale organic growers to make a living other than just that community farm solution. I think the community farm solution is a beautiful solution. I think a community farm is an essential service to the community it serves. I think the community farm can supply not just produce and crops and green space and skill development, but it has so many things to offer. However, there needs to be more options for small-scale organic growers than just the community farm route. So I kind of want to throw that out to you guys next. What do you think are some potential solutions for managing a profitable small-scale organic farm? Have you guys come across anything in any of your studies, any of your travels, of any kind of way that a small scale organic grower can make a living in small scale organic farming without the community farm kind of angle. Have you guys ever come across anything out there? To get you guys thinking, because I'd like to have some answers here. What about co-ops? Do you guys know of any co-op kind of models? I love the idea of a farm co-op. And basically that's what Kawartha Ecological Growers was back in Ontario when I was managing it. However, on paper, it was a sole proprietorship. But I got all of my different growers together twice a year, every year, Amish and non-Amish together in the same room, and it was great meetings. We talked about different direction Kawartha Ecological Growers should be taking to this and that. Mind you, in the end, it was kind of my decision as a sole proprietor. I did go out of my way to try to manage it as a co-op as much as possible. Is anybody familiar with co-ops and co-op structure? So co-ops are, yeah, go ahead, Matt, please.
Just say, wouldn't it just be such that you'd have a communal plot of land where you would all decide what you want to plant, and throughout the season as things are harvested, you all reap the benefits?
Super great. So you're talking about a co-op on one farm in particular, and that does exist out there. I can give you an example, trying to think of the name. It's they're Cavallero Farms in Kings County, I believe they call themselves, just north of Toronto, maybe King City, just north of Toronto. Cavallero Farms is owned by a University of Toronto engineering graduate who bought farmland up that way. And he never had the intention of farming. He likes agriculture, likes to be around agriculture, but never wanted to farm himself. This engineer instead builds equipment and rents out pieces of his land and runs it in a co-op style, and allows people to use these different equipment that he builds in order to farm this land. So there's a great example of a co-op that's that exists like that. And there's other ones out there. But when I was talking about co-ops, when I threw out co-ops in the first place, I was thinking more of individual farmers on individual farms in one geographical region, all supplying to one center, let's say warehouse, just for lack of a better term, and then that warehouse then doing the distribution. And I've seen that, well, the Kawartha Ecological Growers was exactly that, allowing farmers to stay on farm and sell to basically a middleman, in this case the co-op. However, those farms also have input on what that co-op sells that product for and how much return goes back into that farms. It's not just a top-down kind of thing where that center collector is telling the farms, I can pay you this much. No, the farms are the ones setting that payment rate, keeping in mind that the center collection warehouse, for lack of a better term, still needs to be able to make enough money to cover its overheads, and then the rest of that money then goes to the farmers. So there are co-ops out there that seem to work well for small-scale organic growers. That being said, there's really not too many market garden co-ops that I've come across. That doesn't seem to be a popular thing for co-ops in Canada anyway. Co-ops seem to work best for livestock producers and grain producers. I don't know why, I don't have the answers for that, but there seems to be a lot more co-ops made up of grain producers and livestock producers than vegetable producers, at least in Canada.
Mark, if I can just jump in,
Please.
There are the two co-ops that you were talking about, the one where you have multiple different farms coming together. There is one in existence called Really Local Harvest, or Récolte Chez Nous, in southeastern New Brunswick. So if you want to Google them, that's where you have multiple different farms coming together, and they do have, you know, livestock and that sort of thing, but they also very heavy on vegetable production as well. So they exist and they're very popular, and in fact they are being represented on the current COVID-19 response committee for promoting agriculture as a priority sector right now. So check them out. So it's Really Local Harvest, or Récolte Chez Nous. And in terms of looking at one farm that has a cooperative within itself, is Rebecca Fraser-Chasson, who is the president of the NFU chapter in New Brunswick. It's La Ferme Partagée, and they're in Rogersville, I think it is, and they have sort of the land, but there are many different partners within that are working that land, doing multiple things. I think she's just coming out with her own hot sauce right now. So anyway, I just want to let you folks know that there is stuff happening in New Brunswick right now.
Super great, thank you, Edee. Edee is certainly well more connected out here than I am, that's for sure. Plugged in. Another thing I wanted to mention is another solution for small-scale, profitable, small-scale organic farmers. It's something I want to throw out there for discussion are intentional living communities. And so here I'm thinking about places. I visited one way back when, in the late 1990s in Tennessee. There's a place called The Farm, and it's an eco-village, and there's a community of eco-villages across North America. The Farm started out as a commune, as a hippie commune back in the 1960s. But nowadays it operates just like a small town and is part of the eco-village network. There is still some hippiness out there for sure, but not as heavy as it used to be when they used to all live in school buses and whatnot and run around naked on the farm. Just a little bit of that now. But intentional living communities out this way, what comes to mind here is South Knowlesville, the land trust out that way. They call themselves a very neighborly kind of place, is the language they use there. And it's like-minded people living together in similar manners, growing good food for themselves and trying to make a living. Usually intentional living communities, not hugely economically viable, like people don't have a whole lot of money in these kind of places, but they're happy living a lifestyle that is closer to the earth and not having a whole lot of money, and that's super great. To take it a little bit more extreme, out on British Columbia, on the islands out there, there's Lesquetty Island, and it's actually a cash-free society. I'm not talking like no hard kind of money, like I'm not talking just using cards, I'm talking like no money. The ironic thing about that is you need to buy in before you go to live with no money. You need to be able to have X number of money in order to buy land and set yourself up and then live cash free. But interesting project anyway. Lesquetty Island is worth looking into if you're into those kind of intentional living communities. So other solutions, anything else? I got you guys thinking about co-ops, intentional living communities, any other solutions that you can think that would help make a small scale farmer profitable?
I have seen some example in France. It's like kind of like a weekly basket, but like it's like the whole community gathers and helps to set up like the tables and all the vegetables together, and they like pay each one like an amount of money, and they set up all this, and it's like every neighborhood, but it's like more in the cities and stuff, but it helps to bring like the small scale farm to like the market. So they were living like this, and it was working pretty well for them.
Who was that organized? Do you know, Louis?
No, I don't remember. I just remember seeing the video about that.
See, I'm wondering if that was perhaps a government initiative, and that was another thing that I got on my list, is any government kind of help? How can government help small scale producers flourish? And that sounds like a great example. If government was able to set up and create the environment where small scale farmers can set up in every neighborhood around a town, because probably right now, at least from my experiences in Toronto, that's a bylaw infringement, and you won't be able to set up everywhere around town. So government's got to do something in order to make that happen. So anything else? You guys got anything else that governments might be able to do to help small scale organic farmers?
there may be like subsidies and like credits available for like doing like environmentally friendly practices or like site remediation, like on fields, like if you have I don't know, just a bad site. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure.
Yep, and there's different government programs out there. I got some here, links and this and that. We'll see if we have time to get into them. But you mentioned the word subsidies in there, Matt. Subsidies in the farming world can sometimes be a dirty word. Farms that are making a living without subsidies look harshly upon other farms that are taking subsidies in order to do their thing. I'm not saying that's necessarily a subsidy. I'm not saying that subsidies are necessarily a bad thing in the organic farming world, but sometimes they're frowned upon by other farmers. Personally, I like the idea of subsidizing the eaters as opposed to subsidizing the farmers. If the eaters, if the consumers have more money in their pocket and it's not as much of an issue to buy that cheap chicken as opposed to that organic chicken, even though they want that organic chicken and want to support that organic farmer, they end up buying that cheap chicken because it's all they can afford. And so I like the idea of subsidies towards the eaters in order to get them more money in their pocket to make the decisions that then will decide which farms get to grow and which farms should shrink. I think the eaters should lead the way. And if any subsidies go out there, I like the idea of subsidizing the eaters. We'll park that one just for a second. We'll get back to that in just a second. Something else I wanted to mention on this, how to potential solutions for managing or for helping out small scale organic farmers be profitable. I got two more things I wanted to bring up here. Is one is alternative economic models. Right now, we've talked about this in the past. Right now, our society works on a very linear economic model where it creates a lot of waste. Everything just goes from top down to the consumer, and then it's up to the consumer to deal with all this waste. If we had more of a circular economic model, all that waste would be put back into the stream and reused. I got more to talk about in alternative economic models, but I just kind of wanted to bring that up for just a little bit of thought at this point. And then the other one is about greater public education and awareness. If there was greater education out there, like right from the public school system up, about the benefits of supporting small-scale organic farms versus large industrial conventional farms that are shipping globally around the world, I would think that should help this small-scale organic farmer out to having more public education and awareness. Yeah, I'll park that for now. I can talk more about that. Now, speaking of greater public education and awareness, this morning I sent you guys out, I shared with you a folder there on the Google Drive. That folder has a whole bunch of different vegetable fact sheets, and let's take a look at one right now. This one here is for asparagus. There should be, I sent out to you, I don't know, there's well over a dozen in there, maybe approaching 2 dozen different vegetables. I know there's one for kale, there's one for Brussels sprouts. Anyway, all of the vegetable fact sheets are all kind of laid out in a similar manner here, where they all talk about the vegetable, the nutritional benefits, how to store it and keep it fresh so it doesn't spoil on folks, and then ideas of what to do with that vegetable, including a couple of recipes. And they're just one-pagers, just like this, just to kind of demystify different vegetables that people might receive in their produce box. Now, these all came from Horizon Health, the ones that we have currently. However, you'll notice that our list of vegetables far surpasses the vegetables that are listed in that file folder. My challenge to you guys is to create one vegetable information sheet for each of you. I would like each of you to create one of these vegetable information sheets for a vegetable that is not represented. And in that folder that I sent out to you guys is a whole bunch of different vegetables that we grow at Hayes Farm. I have them all listed there. Everything that we're growing at Hayes Farm. Now, in that list of different vegetables being grown at Hayes Farm, I also have the specific varieties listed. You don't need to talk about the specific varieties too much. Let's keep it a little bit more general because those varieties will change year to year. But it would be nice to be able to have a vegetable information fact sheet for every vegetable that we grow. And what I'd like to do right now is come up with a list of who's going to do what, so we don't duplicate things. So give me 1 second to set this up on my very slow
So
computer.
you already shared it? I can't find the folder.
I'm sorry?
Did you say you already shared it? I can't find the folder.
Yeah, I sent it out by email this morning. That hopefully you all received. Okay, give me 1 second. Slow computer. Has anybody received that?
I have.
Okay, good. Got some good nods. That's good. Maybe I forgot you, Matt. It happens. Okay, my computer is giving me a tough time. I'm going to park this and get back to it in just a second. I will work away at creating this list as I hand the floor over to Edee here. Now, as we were talking about different solutions for small scale organic growers, one of the things I mentioned there is government subsidies, and my idea was to not subsidize the farmers as much as to subsidize the eaters more. Then I also mentioned as another solution is what we need, and it's a bit pie in the sky, I realize, but what we could really use to support small scale organic growers is a different economic system than our linear economic model that we're presently under. And towards both of those things, Edee is going to take over here, and she's going to discuss guaranteed annual incomes. And I think that's a very good solution here for small scale organic growers.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to do a PowerPoint just to keep me on track. So I'm going to try and share it. Host has disabled my screen sharing. Is there something you can do on your own?
I didn't disable anything, I promise. I just haven't enabled it. There you go. Should be able to share now.
Okay. Let's see what I can grab here. Here we are. Okay, are you guys seeing something that says community farm model? Okay, great. Boy, great talk today. I think I need to also give you some disclosure on me. I turned 60 years old in August. And I would like, before I die, to see us manifest a gift economy. So I'm putting it out there, and I really think that what's going on right now, systems are crumbling all over the place. COVID-19 is basically a tool that is revealing all the way that our societal systems are weak and crumbling. And so I just wanted to let you know that that's sort of my vision, is to see within the next 20 years or so us move to a gift economy. And I see guaranteed annual income as that transition tool that's going to help us get there. Already with the community farm model, and I'm thrilled to hear that you've already had discussions that talk about how, you know, Hayes Farms model, this model is working. Also that you've gone through our budget, so you can see a lot of my time that I spend with the Hayes project is trying to find money to keep us viable. And I think we really need to revisit what money does in our society and how we can get away from it. So I wanted to talk a bit about poverty, and I can't see, I'm just trying to see if there's a way I can see everybody here, but just jump in. If you have questions, please just interrupt. A lot of times when we think of poverty, it's a financial thing. We're thinking of it in terms of lack of money. But there are a lot of people that may be, you know, privileged to have sufficient money in this society, but there are so many different elements of poverty. You could have poverty of well-being or mental health, poverty of a clean environment. We know that we're suffering from that. Poverty of social inclusion. I think it's really important that we understand that there are a lot of lonely people out there that just haven't been able to find their place. Poverty of knowledge. I mean, a lot of you folks are still in school and you have to buy that. You have to pay for it. Even coming to Hayes Farm, you have to pay for it. So there's poverty of knowledge based on your financial means. And ultimately, poverty of spirit. And when I look at all of this, I kind of galvanize it all into that everybody on this planet, I believe, is suffering from poverty of purpose. And that's what we need to find. We need to find our gift. And when I talk about a gift economy, it's not just giving, but it's also emancipating your gifts, your talents. So money. This is my horror slide where I talk about the monetary system and what we've created here. And this has been around for millennia. I mean, it goes back to the Sumerians when money was first sort of introduced into our society. And the whole concept of money is that it creates a scarcity model. It gives you the impression that there's only so much to go around, and in order to get your piece of whatever that is, you know, there's a fear component to it. It creates separation. It creates competition. The idea is that we're competing with each other, and it's a perception that we're competing for this scarce resource. And it creates a sense of that we have to do this in order to survive. And I'm thrilled, Mark, that you shared when you were talking about when you were going through your business with grassroots organics, that it was a grind. You're using words like saying that it was a grind. You know, it was hard work. You spent a lot of time on the road and away from the part that your happy place, which was being on the farm. You also said that you had to make sacrifices. So there was this sense of, in order to survive, I have to go and do all this stuff to make enough money so that I can be on the farm. But it was kind of a hamster wheel kind of thing. So I like to refer to money as being the true weapon of mass destruction. I think that's because it creates the scarcity model. It puts people into a sense of fear. It separates us from each other in this sense of competition, and we're doing what we can to survive. And I see us all sort of treading water as fast as we can to keep our head above the water. Guaranteed annual income. Now, I'm not sure if I can see all of you here, but how many folks know or have heard about guaranteed annual income, or it's called universal basic income? I don't know. Do you guys? There's this thing I think on Zoom where you can put a thumbs up. Is there under the reactions? Okay, I got Mark. I can see Mark. Anybody else? Just scrolling through you. Aldea, great. Okay, so not a lot of you know about it. That's good. Oops, and now I just got to go backwards here. How do I do that? Basic annual income is the concept that it's actually starting to come. I don't know if you've been following all the different, since COVID-19 hit, what Trudeau has been doing in terms of subsidizing the lost wages or the lost income that COVID-19 is presenting in our society right now. And, you know, there's the CERB, the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit. So he's talking $2,000 a month for folks that have lost their wages. There are wage subsidies for companies. The student wage, there's something I think that came in for $1,250. Again, I'm not sure, things change a lot, but they're looking at putting in this replacement mechanism to replace lost income or lost revenue or lost wages for folks. And it's this close to being an actual guaranteed annual income. And what the concept is, something around the $22,000 a year mark. This is sort of the number that they're bandying about in Canada, is the idea of giving people this safety net. And the concept is it can be universal, so there's no judgment. You don't have to prove that you live in a certain family unit. You know, they don't count how many people you're with. They don't count what your current income is. But the idea is that no matter what happens, if you lose your job, if you've never had a job, you have no income, everyone is guaranteed and lifted up to a certain threshold, which is considered a livable income. And right now it's being sort of bandied about at $22,000. And that's for everybody. And I don't know if you know, in New Brunswick right now, if you're on social assistance, the monthly income for a single person who's on social assistance is only $537 a month. And people are expected to live on that. Yet Trudeau is going out there and he's giving folks $2,000 a month as something that a person would need to survive. So the concept of guaranteed annual income or universal basic annual income is that everybody is valued and supported financially. And the beauty of this is that it comes from a concept of abundance, not scarcity. The idea is that there's plenty for everyone and that we trust each other to know what's best for ourselves. It comes from a place of love, not fear. So again, that caring community. It's inclusive. The idea, if it's universal, that there is no judgment saying, oh, well, you know, you have to, in order to qualify, you have to tick off these boxes. We just give it to you. There's that element of cooperation, not this competition. And it's the element of thrival, the concept of being able to lift people to a point, you know, where you're not treading water madly. The idea is that it gives you this safety net for exploration. The idea is that no matter what I try, I don't have to fear failure in terms of losing the roof over my head, you know, being able to pay rent or my mortgage, or being able to feed myself or clothe my children. The idea is that that support is there. And to bring this down to how it would help with small scale growers, the new farmers today, they are folks that are coming from an urban setting. The majority of them are, and they want to grow ecologically. And the thing is, what they're missing are sort of the three main elements. They're missing is the education, they're missing access to land, and they're missing access to capital, actually investment or equipment, because it hasn't been passed down to them generationally. So the idea is that, could you imagine if everybody knew that they, no matter what they did or what choice they made in terms of what their gift was and being able to fulfill that, if they knew that they had a safety net, that they had livable income, that folks would gravitate towards something like a community farm or creating their own farm operation. It's interesting with COVID-19, you know, the Premier is suddenly shocked to find out that we're only 8% self-sufficient in vegetable production and that we import 95% of what New Brunswickers consume. he's shocked, and yet he doesn't see that the mechanism that needs to be put in place is the people that farming is a calling. And I truly believe that it's also an essential service, and he's deemed it as such. But in order to transition people back to the land, and I find that New Brunswick, I'm originally from Toronto, I moved here 14 years ago, but I'm finding the one thing that's common with all New Brunswickers is that they're people of the land, and they want to spend any extra time that they have outdoors in the land. And so I think if we had guaranteed annual income as a national program, so many people would be going back to growing food. And you can see even with COVID-19 and with the supports that are being given by the federal government right now, people are growing food. NB Community Harvest Gardens, I mean, we started out as just a community gardening group, and we've been flooded with calls and emails and Facebook posts about people wanting to learn how to grow. All our nurseries, local nurseries, are just flooded with people that are buying seeds. They're selling out of compost, all of this stuff, because it's a human reaction to want to get back to the land. And the luxury that folks have right now, even though it's tragic in many circumstances what's happening with COVID-19, people have been given space to think about what they want to do, and they gravitate to the land. So I really believe that guaranteed annual income or universal basic annual income is the way forward for small-scale growers, because it not only supports the farmer who's taking the risk, and remember, I mean, you're finding this out, that we're at the risk of the elements, right? It's a very specific work that you do when it's seasonal, and you're at risk with Mother Nature. And the idea is that if you knew that your wage or your living income would be supported, that's one thing. But as Mark said, the eaters, to be able to bring everybody up to a level where they could have the choice to choose good food is really, really important. So what I wanted to do is, especially for those of you that may not be familiar with it, is to just, you can self-educate on the idea, basic annual income, where you can get more information. So the best website that I've found is basicincomecannada.org. It's the Basic Income Canada Network. And if you go there, they have tons of resources. But the one thing I would suggest you do is they just last week did a wonderful webinar. It's only an hour long, talking about basic income and youth. And I think it would be really well worth your while for you to take a look at it. It talks about, there are two individuals that are interviewed, young folk that were part of the Ontario pilot that was actually pulled by the government early. It was supposed to last for 2 years, and I think it only lasted for 7 months. But they talk about, even in that short period of time, the changes that it made for them in terms of finding what their talent. It makes you kind of career ready. Another website is UBI Works, so universalbasicincomeworks.ca. The other thing I'd let you know about is the Green Party MP Paul Manley has created a petition that is going to be open until the middle of August. And that petition is to the federal government to actually implement basic annual income as the next solution to what the current COVID response is. And lastly, for those of you that are interested in learning more about the gift economy, so this whole concept of taking money out of the picture and this building a society around where everyone contributes based on what their talents are, there is a wonderful fellow. He's not super spacey or anything like that. He's actually very practical in the way that he presents his arguments, and he's a very good writer. It's Charles Eisenstein, and he has a website, charleseisenstein.org, and there is a particular book that he wrote. I'm just trying to see if I've got that here. I don't have it handy, but obviously all of his written material is free, so based on the gift economy. So if you go to that website, you'll learn a lot about that we're really close. And I think humanity is really close to moving towards this. So anyway, that's really all I had to share from a presentation perspective. So I'm going to stop sharing and just kind of open it up for questions. I'm not sure how I do that. Here I am. Okay, sorry guys. So any questions? Comments? Do you think that guaranteed annual income is a good idea? Yeah. Its time has come, really. And from my perspective as a grant writer, I'm getting very sick and tired of doing it, having to justify our existence. Hayes Farm is marvelous, and it should be supported automatically. My next goal is to convince the government that it should be fully supported, just like any university or college, and that it should be replicated throughout New Brunswick and the region. And if we had guaranteed annual income, people, we wouldn't have to worry about charging a tuition. We wouldn't have to worry as much about making sure that the salaries of our employees are being covered sufficiently, that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to it.
And I think with like, it's unfortunate that with this pandemic that people are actually like jumping into gardening and farming and stuff, but it's like, I'm grateful that it's kind of going in that direction and people are realizing. Just in my community, like we were the only ones with a garden, but now it's like this year there's gardens like behind us, their neighbors, in front of us, and it's like all over the place, and it's so nice to see.
It is. And I think it's a natural human response. And it's healing that the mental, they talk about with COVID-19, again, all these different cracks in what our society has created as a system are being revealed. And we've known just from running the 2 community gardens for 10 years now, the mental health benefits of connecting to the land. And you can't even quantify the value of that, so I think that's why I'm really pushing. I'm throwing the ball really far out there in order to move towards a gift economy. We have ways to connect to each other now. That's the one blessing of the internet and social media and all that, is that we can find each other, so we can create connections and relationships, but money, I have issues with that. And my biggest concern is that COVID-19, that at the end of it, or as we start to bring ourselves out of it, now is our chance to really create this brave new world. And we need to make sure that we don't just fall back into an old pattern because it was comfortable. Not comfortable, but it was known. So I think it's really important that we push, and that's why I'd love for you to do whatever you can to get your names on petitions, or to just share it with your family, folk, would be great.
And when you say gift economy, that's the same as the local exchange trade-in system? Like it's like you trade off your skills for like other things?
Yeah, and it can even go beyond trade. Again, it's kind of like we always get sort of hung up on the value. So I think it's bringing in that element of trust. So rather than a straight exchange saying, okay, well, how do you value that? So maybe my talent is music, okay? So I can play you a song, but what is a song worth? Is it worth a bunch of broccoli or that kind of thing? I want us to just move even further away from trying to equate value to just saying, we have people who will grow our food. We have people who are builders and will construct our shelters. We have people who are, they make clothing. We have musicians. We have artists. That we just create a society that is
where we just give.
We just give. It's all, you pay it forward and you trust that it will come back from some other source.
Which it does, but not expecting it back. That's the idea. Like,
yeah,
My
trusting it will. Yeah.
My big thing I keep coming back to every time I'm weeding in the garden and got some quiet time, and I'm going to challenge you guys to think about this too, is if tomorrow there was no such thing as money, would you still go to work? And I would. And I imagine a lot of people that went to college and university still would do their careers. I imagine there's a lot of people out there that do their job and love it and they would continue to do it. Then there's a lot of people out there that hate their job. And those are the jobs that perhaps maybe shouldn't be getting done. The people that go and have to go and dig out like coal out of the earth, the people that are out working the oil patch in dreary environments, maybe they wouldn't work so much. But the people that really like their jobs, they sure would. And some other things might fall apart, because I think about this too often, I'll tell you. But some other things might fall apart, say like trash collection. But it would only fall apart for a short amount of time before people, concerned citizens, all got together and said, hey, we got to do something about our trash problem. And I think everything would get resolved relatively quickly and without too much of a mess if say money was just to disappear tomorrow. So that's something that to think about while you're weeding and gardening and this and that. Think about my blue sky, pie in the sky kind of vision of having no money. Would people still go to work? I would.
Or you would choose based on what you really want to do. And that's why I would encourage you to listen to that webinar, because there are some young folks on there. There was one fellow who he took economics. He was in post-secondary taking economics, and he got a job as a bank teller because everybody told him, well, that's where you start. You want to be a financial advisor, do that. And when he got on this UBI program in Ontario, he actually went to a what is it? The flotations sense deprivation clinic, where you lie in water and you
like meditate.
It's a healing, yes, a healing meditation. Yeah. That's where he went, and he loved it. He excelled at it, and he wants more and more people to do it. So he found it, and he understands sort of that this is it's his words, where he uses the words that because everything's a gig economy now, especially for you folks, for you young folk, that there is no 30-year position out there where at the end of it, you're going to get a pension and all that. That does not exist. It rarely existed anyway. I'm one of the benefits. I see myself on guaranteed annual income because I was fortunate to work in another life for an insurance company, and I got a small pension. And I'm living on that. But I also see myself as a poster woman for guaranteed annual income, because I know that every month I'm going to get $1,350 a month paid through my pension, and I can live on that. And it frees me up to do things like writing grants and promoting things like Hayes Farm. So I think it's really important that we look at that safety net for exploration, so you can find yourself, and then once you find yourself, then you're going to gravitate to whatever the work is that suits you best.
In your presentation, I really liked the concept, and there was actually a term I had never heard of before, and I had to break it down in my head, and that was thrival. And, thriving instead of simply trying to survive. So I really like that comparison and trying to go towards that.
Yeah, it's ludicrous that we have to chase money. I mean, the thing is, you even look at in your own lives, if there's something that's off balance, I bet you can always trace it back to money, because money creates this antagonistic environment, and it keeps us like this, and a lot of it is false. It's a false perception that we're in competition for each other. I find this even in the grant world when I'm writing grants. So many people say, well, who are you writing to for a grant? And it's like, there's part of me that my first knee-jerk reaction is, don't tell them, because they might get your money. And that's insane. And so thriving, we can thrive. the earth provides everything we need. You're finding that out at Hayes Farm, that, you know, just where's your happy place? Probably sitting in the middle of the field, you know, talking to the plants. And so we have everything we need. We can connect with each other, and we can actually thrive once we figure out what our purpose is. And we just haven't been given that luxury because we're always chasing money. If we can stop doing that, our gifts will be 1,000-fold. Any more questions?
So Edee,
Oh,
yeah. So when you say that a universal like basic income, I mean, what would be the source of like that universal basic income for? I mean, if you have to give it to the like the normal population, I mean, how
well,
are you going to?
yeah, the money is already there. It's just, for me, we've got everything we need. We just have a distribution problem. And when you think about the benefits of basic annual income, the health benefits, the idea of, if you have someone who is thriving, their mental health is going to improve. If they're eating well, their health is going to improve. If there's social inclusion, that they can now afford to interact with humanity, that kind of thing. The idea is that we have all these systems already in place that are supposed to be helping that. Like, think of our health system right now, how overburdened it is, because we have people that are unhappy. Typically, they're poverty of purpose. So we just shift that. You're going to see that the savings through bringing in a guaranteed annual income, savings to our health departments, our financial, not the financial departments so much as the social service departments, the bean counters, the people that are there adjudicating us, looking at us and judging, well, okay, well, you make this, you just $10 over the threshold, so sorry, you can't apply. That person is making income. So the idea is it's a readjustment of where the current finances are coming to. So it's not that we're looking for new money, we're just redistributing money that's already going to a lost system.
Edee, if I can jump in here. I've heard a stat on National Public Radio once, and I was trying to find a hit for it, but I couldn't find it right now. But if you took this is all published data, and this is from the US, mind you, because it's NPR, but if you took all of how much total income is being made by all the jobs in the US, and you divided that equally amongst all of the workers, the stat they came up with was everybody would be making $250,000 a year. That's how much inequality is out there. Some people are making absurd amount of money, and other people are making a ridiculous little amount of money. But if it was distributed evenly, there'd be more than enough money to go around. It's just a distribution problem.
Yeah, and from a practical perspective, Shering, if you wanted to go to that website that I gave you, the basicincomecanada.org, they actually came out with the numbers. So they've worked 3 different scenarios where they would only give it to individuals of a certain income, and seniors, people of a certain income, and all seniors. And then there's one which is universal, where there's no limit on it. You're breathing, you get it, kind of thing. And again, keep in mind that all so anyway, those 3 options are there, and they've costed it. And so you can see that it's just a shifting of where the money is going. Lost my train of thought, but anyway, it's there. So if you look at, they have a report that's on there. It's like a 100-page document, but it's well worth looking at the options. So it's been quantified.
Do you know of any places, like any countries that do the guarantee annual income?
Do I know that? I know they're all working towards it. I haven't heard that, but there is a broader network. So there's Basic Income Canada .org, and there is the Basic Income Earth. So if you go to them, that talks about the different countries that are all working globally towards it. So yeah, forgive me. may very well be somebody. I think everybody's been doing it as a pilot, but pilots are useless because they've already been done, first of all, and they've proven their worth. It was actually done, the first one was done here in Canada in Dauphin, Manitoba, and that was back in 1974. And it was proven successful. And it was a universal version of it where they didn't pick and choose. They just said the whole community gets it. And they documented how successful it was. So it's been proven. We just need the political will to do it. And that's why things like, if you're interested in this, take a look at the petition that Paul Manley has put out there, because the more names we can get to it, the better, in order to just make sure that people realize that this is what the folks want, what people really need. We need to pay people, not businesses, because once people have that choice, the businesses will decide what businesses we want to stay, right?
Lindsay, Ontario had a pilot project underway very recently. When Doug Ford was elected, he canceled it. CBC did a good interview with a couple of fellas that were receiving this guaranteed basic annual income. If you did a Google search for CBC Lindsay guaranteed annual income, I'm sure you'll get a podcast for that, and it's some great listening.
Yeah.
I gotta kind of wrap this up here, Edee, if you don't mind.
Sure.